Hi guys, this is Inner Patterns Lab and my name is Olga, and on this channel we're talking about our subconscious programming and how it can be changed using GSR method. Today I want to share with you a personal story about a profound inner transformation that happened to me after just one GSR session. You see, for most of my life, saying no was difficult for me, even if I knew that I was sacrificing my own needs. Of course, I could say no if I absolutely had to, but it felt as if I was forcing myself to set boundaries, and it always triggered an enormous amount of guilt, pressure, and obligation. And after just one GSR session, saying no started feeling not only natural, but also loving, both towards myself and towards the other person. And there was no pressure, no inner conflict, no feeling that I was doing something wrong, that I was hurting someone. Just clarity, balance, and love. And in this video, I want to show you exactly what happened and explain how this change became possible. But first, let me briefly explain what GSR is, because this is the method I used. GSR is a method of working with our subconscious mind. It appeared not long ago, so it is relatively new, but it has already helped thousands of people all over the world create meaningful change in their lives. You can learn to do the sessions yourself, or you can work with a certified practitioner. I have been practicing this method since 2019, both for myself and with clients, and I have seen lots of remarkable transformations in different areas of life. And the basic idea of a GSR session is simple. So imagine that you have a situation where you feel emotional discomfort. Maybe you don't understand how to change this situation, or maybe you don't feel strong enough to deal with it, or maybe the situation itself can't be changed objectively and you simply suffer because of it. In GSR, we look at what is happening in your subconscious at the moment when this discomfort appears. And very often there we discovered something that in GSR we called energy distortion. This is a place in your subconscious where your energy is no longer flowing naturally, which affects the way we experience and respond to reality. And as long as this energy not exists, the situation continues to generate stress, discomfort, and limitations. And during a session, a practitioner untangles this knot and the energy starts flowing freely. And people, after the session, and sometimes during a session, experience relief, more clarity, and very often a totally new perspective on the situation. And also, after a GSR session, people very often discover some inner strength to make changes in their lives that before that seemed impossible. GSR sessions are performed using sheets of paper that are placed on the floor. And these sheets act as anchors for different parts of your subconscious mind. So basically, you can think of them as a living map of your subconscious. And when a session starts, a practitioner starts working with these sheets of paper, and at the same time, the changes happen in your subconscious. GSR sessions are done entirely online, so basically you just sit and observe this process as it unfolds and observe the changes that are happening inside of you. So you see, in this video, I want to tell you more about how this works. I don't mean that I will show you GSR technique itself, because if you're interested in the technique, you can always buy a course and learn to do it yourself. But I want to talk about the energies that we work with, how they are changed, how it affects our lives, and why these changes are so profound, deep, why even one session can make your life so much easier and better. Okay, so here is what was happening in my life. So I found myself in a situation when I had to say no to two close people because they asked me for favors that would have required a significant amount of my time, energy, and effort. And it's important to say that these were not emergencies. No one was in trouble. No one was desperate for help. None of that. You see, so these people were just trying to save themselves some time, money, and inconvenience. And also, it's worth mentioning that I have known them for a long time, and I know that they tend to be a little bit manipulative. So, I understood that no was an appropriate response, that, it was a good idea to say no. And I understood that I didn't owe them anything and it was really the best solution. But my emotional state was absolutely different. So the situation inside of me was not like this because I felt guilt. I felt as if I was failing as a friend. I felt as if I was being selfish, and I felt such heaviness inside. And at some moment, this tension became so intense that I even had trouble sleeping for several nights. And I understood that I desperately needed a GSR session, not to change the situation, but to regain my inner balance. I worked with this feeling of guilt, with this feeling of heaviness, and what I discovered was absolutely fascinating. But before I tell you exactly what it was, let me explain something about the energies that GSR sessions work with. So you see, GSR method works with the energies of so-called ancestral field, or sometimes people can call it family field. And the main idea is that we inherit from our ancestors much more than physical genetics alone. We inherit some behavioral patterns, some emotional patterns. We inherit ways of relating to other people and ways of responding to reality. And all of this happens unconsciously. So, we do it without realizing it, mostly. And these patterns basically shape our lives. And during the GSR session, we identify these patterns and we identify the ones that no longer serve us, the ones that just create unnecessary suffering and limitations, and we transform them. And this is exactly what I did during my GSR session. When I looked at my feeling of guilt and heaviness through that lens, I discovered something unexpected. I saw that I was carrying a family pattern of taking care of people who refused to take care of themselves. And why this was happening? Because in my family field, in my family system, there were a lot of people, mainly women, who spent their lives taking care of some dysfunctional people. Very often alcoholics, for example. And often also these women had to raise children entirely on their own, and of course sacrificing a lot, sacrificing themselves, sacrificing their needs in the process. So, they were carrying these immense burdens. And this situation over time became normalized in my family system. So you see, when my friends wanted to lean on me, instead of handling their responsibilities, my first impulse was to go towards them, to help them, not because it was the best solution, not because it was appropriate, not because it was the best choice in present-day circumstances, but just because it felt familiar, because a lot of people in my family system sacrificed themselves for the sake of others, and maybe my ancestors had no choice. Probably they didn't, but I did have a choice. And still, I had this huge impulse to act the way my ancestors behaved. So, and, just seeing the true motivations behind my actions was already a powerful insight. But my favorite thing about GSR sessions is that during a session, we don't only get an insight, we'll also transform this pattern. The first thing you notice after a GSR session is a change in your inner state. And of course, I started feeling absolutely differently. But, I decided to do this session because I wanted to regain my inner balance. So I expected that I would feel more calm and more balanced, but I actually got much more. Because instead of this heaviness and guilt, suddenly I started feeling genuine love towards my friends. You see, this love was flowing so naturally, and I was still saying no to them. So outside nothing has changed, but my inner state was absolutely different. I suddenly realized that my refusal in this situation was beneficial not only for me, but for them as well. I suddenly realized that saying no in this situation was an act of love, because by refusing to take care of them, by refusing to carry some responsibilities that were not mine, I was actually supporting their independence. The session also made me much more conscious of the way I relate to people, because I suddenly deeply realized the difference between support and enabling. Because support helps a person connect to their own strength, and enabling helps them remain weak, So enabling is when we call something help, but what we actually do is keeping the person stuck in the same place where this person is. And you see, suddenly I really saw this mechanism. And that's when I understood that my refusal was actually a way of supporting my friends, because I was saying no to their manipulation, basically. I was saying no to enabling. And this way I just showed them their inner strength. But sometime later, I noticed something even deeper. You see, because as I have mentioned earlier, so I was relating to my friends through a particular ancestral pattern. But what is important, this pattern didn't exist on the outside. It lived inside of me. And my friends just made it visible. And it's very important to understand that, that this pattern was not only the way I treated other people, but also the way I treated myself, So I suddenly understood that that I was looking all the time for some easier path, that I was trying to avoid discomfort whenever possible, that I exaggerated my inability to handle difficult situations. And I treated myself as if I was much more fragile than I actually am, you see? So there was this enabling inside of me. When I transformed this pattern, my favorite part was that this change wasn't limited to only one particular situation, because I started feeling this increased confidence. And this confidence spread across different areas of my life. I realized that I was making decisions. I had been making decisions before the session on an assumption that I was weaker than I actually was. I was afraid of change. Deep inside, I believed that change would be very difficult and traumatic for me. But after the session, I started seeing my own strengths, not only strength and independence of my friends, but also my own. And it changed my life significantly. For example, it gave me more confidence to be more visible on social media. It affected even my everyday decisions. For example, I started thinking about moving to another apartment, because the apartment where I was living at the moment wasn't really good for me. But before the session, I thought that it's okay to tolerate such things. And after the session, when my confidence grew, when it increased, I understood that I want something different, and I felt the power to go for it. That's what I love so much about GSR sessions, because sometimes we are bothered by some very small situations, but when you look deeper, you realize that sometimes underneath a very small situation there is a very deep and profound energy pattern that shapes our whole life, that shapes our the way we relate to basically everything, and GSR sessions are the fastest way to identify these patterns and to change them. GSR session takes 1 hour or 1 hour and a half, basically up to 2 hours. So it's a very fast method. And you see, these 2 hours may bring absolutely significant changes to your lives. So you see, guys, if this video resonated, please subscribe to my channel and watch my next videos. And If you have any more questions about this wonderful method that is called GSR, you can contact me. My email is below the video. And of course, if you want to try GSR session for yourself, I will be so happy to work with you. Also, please contact me. The email is below the video and I will be happy to work with you. We will book a session and I'm sure that it will be the beginning of something absolutely wonderful in your life, because GSR session is the fastest route to the happiest place in your life.